Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hey, it's Jackie Cation. Welcome to the Dork Forest. You know the websites, JackieCation.com, thedorkforest.com, dorkforest.com, and of course, FamilyPetAncestry.com, because I thought it was funny. Anyway, you know the credits. Mike Rickberg composed the intro song to the Dork Forest. He sang it with his girlfriend Sarah Cohen. He's good people. Now he will sing again at the end, the Mexican hat dance, lyrics he made up himself. Patrick Brady fixes this audio. He does vital work, and I thank him for it. And Vilmos is the guy who does my website. So if you go to Hired Gun, I think it's Hired Gun, and it's in the notes. His website, he could do your website for you, is what I'm saying. So, it is November, and in November and December, I ask that you do not donate to the Dork Forest. You can donate any other month, or if you do donate, if you want to donate this month, and some people have, just don't forget that you should be donating to a food bank. And if you were thinking about donating to the Dork Forest, you can take that money and donate to a food bank. I'm okay with that. What you do is you go on the internet and you Google the name of your town, and then you Google the word with the name of your town, space, food bank. And then it comes up, because there's a food bank in every town. And then you give them the $100 you're going to give me. Because I like the idea of everyone giving me $100 a year, or $10 a month, or $8.33 a month if you're going to do it through November and December. But it's November. It's December. These are some holiday times, and it would be nice to have people have food. Anyway, if you want to support the Dork Forest, you can always, it's going to be the holiday season. You can get them a Dork Forest t-shirt. Go to the merch page on JackieCation.com and order yourself a Ranger t-shirt, a Dork Forest t-shirt. Ranger t-shirt by Salmon Beamel Benrud, my nephew. Ranger t-shirt by Brett Chambers out of Portland, Oregon. Just saw him the other day. Or you can get my new DVD. This will make an excellent Horcrux, also available in CD form, also available online for about $8 or $9. But you can buy a hard copy if you like. I will sign it if you'd like me to. And you can get all that as presents. You can get it just to get it. And then when you order from Amazon, and we all do, there's a banner on JackieCation.com, a white strip that says support the show by ordering from Amazon. If you just go through there, it's a portal to Amazon, and you make your order, I get a percentage. I get a little kickback. So that is harmless as well. Now, there's an ad this month, and it's going to play in a heartbeat, and it's Bob Calhoun's book, and it's a good one. And other than that, I have shows, because this is a bonus episode. I will tell you about the shows November 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. On the 8th, I'm in Santa Barbara. More information on my Twitter feed at JackieCation. You can always email me, by the way, Jackie@JackieCation.com. On the 9th, I'm in Magicopolis down in Los Angeles, where I'm doing a benefit for Jake Johansson's child's public school. Yeah, there's all kinds of problems with that, but I'm glad to help. So if you're down Santa Monica wise, come to Magicopolis on November 9th and support that event. And the 10th is a Monday. I'm doing the Hot Tub Show with Kurt Braunauer and Kristen Scholl. And the 11th, I am doing a character, an HR lady for the Y2K awareness program. It's set in 1999. So those are the programs. You can see my entire calendar on JackieCation.com. Let's get into it. Let's do the ad, and then let's get into the show. Thanks for listening. Shattering conventions, shattering conventions, shattering. Shattering. Hey, I sang. It's Jackie Cation. Shattering conventions, commerce, cosplay, and conflict on the expo floor by Bob Calhoun is this month's sponsor. It's a hilarious and disturbing book. Friend of the show, conventions dork Bob Calhoun, has been on the show, previous episode. He goes to all kinds of different conventions, trade shows, and expos, and writes about it in Shattering Conventions. But he doesn't just go to Comic-Con and Star Trek conventions. He goes to a gun show, a livestock show, a Republican convention, a conspiracy convention. I remember being slightly worried when he went to that one. And even a Bigfoot Hunter Con. There's all kinds of crazy and wrong in this book, and it's not always where you expect to find it. Not only have I read this book, I endorsed it with a blurb on the back cover, and I recommend it to all Rangers of the Dork Forest and spooky reading girls within the sound of my voice. The book is Shattering Conventions, Commerce, Cosplay, and Conflict on the Expo Floor by Bob Calhoun. It's available in ebook and paperback from Amazon.com and other fine booksellers. For more on the book, go to shatteringconventions.com. It's a really good book. You should get it. Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I am in my living room, and we're the proud purveyors of dork foresting. So with me is I am a fan of Mr. Jared Logan, New York comedian, jaredlogan.com, at Jared Logan on Twitter, and some heavy breathing. I can hear you.
Is it me? Am I huffing?
Yeah, you're huffing and puffing.
My father always used to do that. You could always tell when he was in the room because he's like,
And you have a new CD out called My Brave Battle.
yes.
Available on iTunes, and probably if they go to jaredlogan.com, they can find
They can find everything. Amazon, it's on that.
Do you have a podcast?
I don't. I should.
Yeah. Everybody else does. Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. Look for that. I think I could probably get it started up. I think next week's probably.
Oh, yeah. That's how easy it is, quite honestly. You could do. Yeah.
You actually could, right?
Right. Just tomorrow, all of a sudden, Libsyn will sell you some online cloud space or whatever.
Who does yours? I'll do that person too.
Libsyn. I do Libsyn.
Libsyn.
Yep,
Okay.
$20 a month, and they're very nice. They put it on iTunes for you. You just upload it. You put your little documentation down there. You can upload a photo. They will even make an app for you. I have an app that some people have purchased, and God bless them.
Yeah.
Because there's a small bonus thing that I do that my husband and I talk about the show for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
He goes, "How was the show?" And I tell him, and then we comments on whatever the person's dorkdom was. And that's 2 minutes. And it used to be only available on the app, the APP, as Maria Bamford's mom likes to call it. But it turns out Libsyn has just started posting it.
Oh, okay.
Right, for free.
Hey, you're like, hey, that's bonus content.
Right. Well, bonus. Here's the bonus thing. You got to go to tdf.libsyn.com and scroll down to the bottom, and it says, "Here's the episode for download. Here's the bonus for download."
Okay.
So you can do that. If you don't have the app, knock yourselves out, Americans, Rangers, Rangers of the Dork Forest.
Everybody can get it.
Everybody.
That's good. That's for Dork Forest dorks.
Right. Extra Dork Forest dorks. Yeah, super fun. Jared Logan,
Yes.
I'm an admirer of your work.
I love your work, Jackie. Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
It's really super fun. If you get a chance to see Jared Logan doing the stand-up comedy, talking out of his joke hole, do it. But here's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Renaissance history, medieval history.
Renaissance and medieval history. I love it.
What came first?
In chronological order,
yes.
The medieval
The medieval
era
age.
came first.
The Dark Ages,
although they
and
really
then the
are,
Renaissance.
They really are the same, really. You know, when the Renaissance is just like kind of a movement that happened inside of the Middle
Dark Ages,
and then before you knew it, we had the modern era, is what they call it. They call the late 1500s, 1600s modern, if you can believe that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Somebody's really old to think that that's just oh no, I was a kid back in the 1500s.
And then we were modern. That's when it happened. And it's January 1st, 1600.
Right. Remember what happened in 1599?
Right.
That was Spanish Armada? What was that?
Geez, that was 1582.
Was it?
Oh,
Okay.
now see, here's the thing. People are going to challenge my dorkdom, and they're going to defeat me.
You're going to win.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Great opportunity for a guy like Todd Mason to just shout at his iPod now. That'll be great. He's a ranger.
Yeah.
And he knows things. That guy,
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there, a lot of rangers, got a lot of info. They are classic dorks of the Ranger of the Dork Forest kind of genre. Much like all of us, where we have just a lot of information and now you're going to be put on the spot. So what do you love about the Middle Ages?
I really, really like the actual history of it. You know, I like a lot of dorks. I grew up reading, fantasy, epic fantasy.
Oh, right.
And still do, and still love it. But then you find the source material, and it's almost even more fun. I also, by the way, am a fan of horror.
Oh,
and I like any kind of story that's very dark and kind of sad. I like sad endings. And
really?
The medieval era is full of just sad, dark, supremely effed up stuff that happened over and over.
One sad sack story after another about. What about Roland? The Song of Roland.
Yeah, that's
I read
good.
a child's version of that when I was in junior high. Sobbed. I tell you, the horn, nobody came.
Oh, gosh.
The horn, nobody fucking came.
Yeah, and there's
Rise to the occasion.
Amazing homage to that in The Unwritten. If you've read The Unwritten
The
by
comic
Mike
book,
Carey.
Mike Carey,
Yeah.
yeah. There is
So they work that in. But yeah, Song of Roland. Wow, yeah. I'm also one of these people who always will buy, like, you said you read a children's version.
Yes.
I'll like buy like the Song of Roland at
Right,
Barnes
in
and
French.
Noble.
No, but
Jeez.
translated.
Translated, and then I'll be like, I'm reading the Song of Roland. Here I go. I'm going to read the Song of Roland, and then I'll read like you know, a little
9
ways into it, and I'll
pages.
be like, I might not be reading this Song of Roland.
We're the same person. I tried to read Don Quixote, and it's a great book. It is genuinely, and that was, I believe, one of the very first novels I was told.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it is 500 pages, and it is good. It is good. I read probably 95 pages. You would have thought I would have been in. But it turns out it's funny, but it's funny like Gargantua and Pantagruel
Yes.
funny, kind of Balzac, and you're like, oh, this prose is far too well written for me to be able to finish this.
It's a
I get
very
tired.
different frame of mind
It's
than
dense.
the frame of mind that we have. When you talk about Idiocracy, like the Mike Judge film, and how
Yeah.
in the future all they can watch is like "Whoops, I farted" shows,
Yeah.
and you know, you and
I don't want to be that guy.
I don't
wanna-
either, and I don't think it makes us stupider, but it definitely means that our brains and how we take in information have changed.
Right.
I
Right.
bought Sir Thomas Mallory's
Oh yeah.
the entire Arthur, the La Morte de Arthur.
Oh,
I bought
did you?
2 volumes of it.
Yep.
It literally has no story. It's like, and then they went here, and then these people fought these people, and this person was killed, and this person escaped, and then they went here, and then this person was.
So there's no exposition. It's all just facts.
There's
it's
no-
essentially
it is like he
a
rec-
liturgy.
It is a liturgy. Yes, it is a liturgy. They just recorded what, quote, happened, unquote, to King Arthur.
Right. Right.
Kind of cool to have. You know what's cool with books like that?
Yeah.
Maybe you can't read it front to back, but you crack it open and you always find some kind of weird gem just there in the middle on
Right,
the
a couple
page.
of paragraphs where you're like,
Yeah.
I think, and I'm probably going to say it wrong. It's Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, or Gawain, Sir
Yeah.
Gawain and the Green Knight, however it's pronounced. And I ended up powering through that. Granted, it is 110 pages, so it had that going for it.
Sure.
And but I really wanted to read the original of that because it had been referred to so many times in you know, when you read Tolkien or you read and I have a stack of books that's ridiculous, right? We all have a stack of books.
Sure.
And some of them are what I call smart books. And they're called that because when I was a child, my stepmother, was a hairdresser, and she said, man, there's a new idiot working at work one day. She comes home, she's like, this woman is not smart. And I was reading, and she was like, oh, you're reading a smart book. And it was like The Winds of War. I mean, it was not,
Yeah.
it was like John Jakes.
Yeah.
It was a historical fiction
Yeah.
book. And she's like, oh, you read those smart books. And I was like, so when I thought about, we would make fun of it for years. And what made me laugh about it was I was like, because there are smart books. There's books that, like, if you look over there, these are my books I have on display. These are
Yeah.
the books like Ovid's, Metamorphoses.
Yeah.
And, you know, these are, these are the decent books.
But that's another one. Crack it open and you'll find something in the middle that's just mind blowing.
Right.
Read it cover to cover. You're amazing.
Right.
Like I'm impressed.
Let there be a class, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
that's when I read Ovid, or however one would pronounce it correctly, but I read it in class.
Yeah.
And that's the one time I finished the Silmarillion, was I had a class on it.
Yeah.
And, so medieval history, did you study it in school, or do you just read a lot of
not at all.
historical?
You know, that's another thing that I missed that. I don't know where I was going to school. They just never really got into it. You maybe had like a chapter, like one Tuesday they talked about it, and then that was it. So I really do study it on my own now. I read popular histories. I don't read, scholarly articles.
Yeah.
But I find that the popular histories are fantastic. Right now I'm reading Thomas Asperger's The First Crusade,
Okay.
which is about the First Crusade.
Okay.
And I'm about
And it's a
200 pages
nonfiction
in.
popular. It's
All
just
nonfiction.
and it's a history.
Popular in that it's readable, right? You know,
Okay.
I mean, I would say that's the only
way to go.
Compromise it makes, and it is a harrowing tale
of the First Crusade.
of the First Crusade and how it came about and
How
why
did it come
came
about?
about.
Why did it come
Yeah,
about?
it's crazy, right? Like that's what he opens by going, why would they do this? Why would all these people who had lived in Europe, who had never been 100 miles away from home,
Right.
why would they go, you know what, we're going to walk, because they didn't ride the whole way, 3,000 miles
To Jerusalem.
and kill a bunch of people we've never met, never had any. There was no, people try to say that, you know, he makes the case that people now try to say that there was tension between Islam and Christianity back then. There was not. In fact, over where the Muslims lived, Christians and Jews were allowed to live in total relative peace with them. Like in the same cities.
Right.
All the time.
Side by side.
What it was is the Pope, he was like, he was mad because he didn't have any power anymore. The Pope had the office of Pope had
What
been more
century is
powerful. We're in 1095, I think, when he calls it.
Okay.
No, when he calls the crusade. It's
Okay.
1095.
Pope calls it. Pope
Yeah.
says, all right.
Yes. He did this because
Which Pope? Any idea?
this was Urban.
Okay.
I think Urban the Third. I'd have
Okay.
to, I have to look in my book. And the guy before him was a guy named Pope Gregory, who
Yeah.
was like, screw this. The Pope is awesome. I'm going to have my own army. Everybody has to do what I say. I rule Europe.
Okay.
Because I'm the Pope and I tell you what God says and God is the boss.
Right.
And everybody was like, not so much, Gregory. You can't boss
Okay.
us around. You're no longer, they just decided he wasn't Pope anymore.
Oh, God.
And so his eventual successor, this guy Urban, was like, crap, I want to be super powerful and rule the world like Cobra Commander as well. But Gregory was a dummy. He did it in
Right.
a real dumb, like obvious, like boneheaded way.
Right.
How can I do this like real slick to where people
so Urban,
submit to my
The
rule?
Karl Rove of popes.
Totally.
Wow.
Yeah, the power behind the power. So he's like, okay, they're not going to let me have my own Pope army.
Right.
So I'll just tell them that if
They
they
get
all
to-
go and attack these Islamic people, then all of their sins are forgiven.
Wow.
And so he didn't really understand what a can of worms he was opening.
Yeah.
And whoop ass, yeah.
Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah.
And so he said, all right, we're starting a crusade, a la a jihad, per se. One might also.
Totally. And I don't think the book makes the case that he didn't really know how many people would go.
Right.
Like he
How
thought
many
it might be
people
like
went?
a couple
Right.
hundred. Oh God. I don't want to get my number wrong,
Thousands?
but I think it was 60,000.
Oh, shit.
And he was like, what about? Oh God.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did he have to arm them or did he have to do anything?
No. So that's the other thing is like these guys were so ready to go because if you were a noble in like medieval England, your job was to sit around and practice with your sword all day, and you had all this expensive stuff that everybody made you buy. Like you're like, you got to have armor, and you're like, why? I'm sitting on my ass.
Right.
Like, what do I do with all this stuff? So they started fighting each other a lot in Europe,
Okay.
and that became kind of an
the
endemic
tournament.
problem. Well, that was a safe way to do it. And in fact, that didn't come along till someone had a bright idea later, like in the 1300s.
Oh, we're going to bleed off all of this energy by having tournaments.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit. We'll kind of bleed off some of this energy. But even like in the, the 11th century here, like they're sports, right?
Yeah.
Like, but they just kill each other in the sports. You know that,
in
right?
the sport, they're just like, oh, we'll actually be dying.
Yeah, there's like, I read this book called A World Lit Only by Fire, which is fantastic. You gotta get it. I believe the author is William Manchester.
Okay.
Anyway, he talks about there were like these sporting events where, 28 people would just be slaughtered in like the middle of the match.
Wow.
And everybody was like, that was a fun.
That was really fun. Did you see how that one guy died?
That happened. Good festival, everybody. High five.
Good festival. That's the worst con ever.
Yeah,
That is
I'm
the
not
worst
going. I'm not
Comic-Con.
signing on.
Right. So the Pope doesn't pay for this.
Yeah.
He just says, all right, well, you guys are already armed. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to point you in the direction of what I want you to do.
Right, and he made the case that the Byzantines were having problems with Islam, which they were a little bit. The Byzantines, they're the Empire of Byzantium, Constantinople, and they are Christian, but they have some ideological differences with the Western or Latin Christians, right? And they're kind of like hanging out over there in Constantinople. They have very little in common with all these guys that are going on the crusade, but when they hear they're coming, they're like, the emperor Alexius is like, oh, I can use these guys. Well, I get a free army?
I got a free
I'll do
army
that.
of Christians to kill these Persians that I don't like.
Yeah, and again, Islam wasn't giving them that much of a hard time. Like, they had taken over a bunch of territory from the Byzantines.
I think the Armenians.
Like years and years ago.
I think if I remember my Armenian history,
Yeah.
which I have a little bit access to somewhere, somebody told me something, is that there was some, like, there's always going to be fanatics.
Yeah.
So there were fanatical Islam who were like telling the Armenians that they had to be Muslim.
Yes.
And then the Armenians who were Christian. But really, I don't know if you know any Armenians. We're really the mellowest of all Christians. We're just like, no, we just want to sit together and have coffee and play backgammon.
Yeah.
Is that something?
And let crusaders into cities, because that's what they did when the crusaders got there.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that we're just like, all right, well, if you're going to take care of this guy who's bossing us around, go for it.
Yeah.
And we will sell you swords and food, and it'll be fine.
That's exactly what happened. These guys got to these, these Middle Eastern cities, and the Armenians who were Christians were always like, here, psst, over here. Coming this way.
Did you need a towel?
Yeah.
Let me sell you this towel and this pan for gold. And
we made breakfast for you. The Muslims are over there. So
Right.
do what you will with that
Christians.
information.
Yeah, we're Christians. I know we look just like them, but it's over there.
Right.
Yeah, but I vaguely remember that's so crazy that the Pope called it.
Oh yeah. And it's so weird how all of these guys, a lot of them, went Colonel Kurtz when they got there. They just went completely and now I am my own nation.
Is that Apocalypse Now, or is
Apocalypse?
that?
Well,
Okay.
no, I'm
It's,
talking about
John
the original
Conrad?
novel, John Conrad. Yes.
Did the Heart of Darkness?
Heart of Darkness.
Another sad sack book that Jared Logan really enjoys.
I love that book.
you love
The horror. So a lot of guys went over there. I forget the one guy's name, but there was a young guy who was like, screw your expedition. I'm going off on my own. And he just went south and just
Into Africa?
No. I mean, the main Crusader army to get to Jerusalem had to take this big roundabout route, and then
Like through
another
Germany?
expedition went. No. This is after they've gotten to the Levant or whatever.
Okay.
So they had to go around all these mountains, and then this one guy's like, no, I'm going right through. I think the name of the area is called Cecilia, something like that. I'm sorry, but he just
Sicily?
no, not Sicily.
Okay.
They'd already gotten to the Middle East. They'd already
so
crossed
they were
over into
northern-
Turkey.
they were in
Turkey.
Turkey. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he just broke off from everybody else and tried to start up his own nation all by himself without
Who's
the
that
Pope
guy?
backing him up. He was a young guy, something of Boulogne, I think, Robert of Boulogne or something like that.
some French dude?
Yeah, some French dude.
All right.
Yeah.
And how did that work out for him?
Not so good. I mean, first he took out his buddy who went with him. Him and this other army went.
Okay.
And then his buddy took over a city, and then he was like, I've got more people, and I'll kill you. So immediately turned on his own comrade.
Weird.
And it was like, get out of the city. The city's mine. And his comrade was like, okay, dude, and took off, and then he took over that city, and then I'm in the middle of the book, so I'm still reading his story, but he really gets in bed with all of these people who want him to overthrow their leaders, and you know what happens when that kind of thing happens a lot of the time.
bloodbath.
A bloodbath. So
is
it
that
looks
what
like
you
it's
love
leading
about
that way?
Right? Are you so you've read A World Lit Only by Fire, and this First Crusade book is what you're reading now.
Right now,
and
yeah.
those are both Middle Ages.
Those are A World Lit Only by Fire is a great book. It's the Middle Ages and how it became the Renaissance, right?
How did it become the Renaissance?
Well, yeah. Well, another book that I read that really helps illustrate this too is The Swerve. Have you heard of The Swerve?
No.
The Swerve is by Stephen Greenblatt.
Okay.
And basically it's about
Does he have anything to do with our current deficit? Anyway, that's Greenspan.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
go. So
Mr. Greenblatt. Yeah.
The Swerve.
So there were all these guys in Europe when it was the Dark Ages.
Yeah.
And they kind of worked for the Pope. They were like secretaries. They knew how to write, right?
Okay.
They knew how to speak Latin very well.
Okay, scribes.
Scribes, yes. And they sort of had this kind of catty, sort of jealous of each other culture. Sometimes comedian culture might be similar. And in fact, one of the main guys in the book, The Swerve, wrote one of his main works was a book of dirty jokes about the Vatican and the papacy.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I kid you not. So these guys would like,
the
if
Pope walks into a bar.
yeah, and, you know, how many whores does the Pope, whatever,
Right.
Pardon my French. So these guys would like, they would like, if they needed money or they were really desperate, they would go and search for scrolls that hadn't been seen in a long time.
Okay.
And in fact, this one guy in the book, really the main guy they follow, his pope gets deposed because this was always happening. I just
Okay.
told you about a pope
Yeah.
hundreds of years earlier who had been deposed. Well,
Right.
his pope got deposed, and so he had no job. All of a sudden, he's without a job.
And no sponsor.
No sponsor. And
New
you
pope
had to
doesn't
have
like-
a sponsor.
Right.
If you were just going to be a guy that's like, I can write on paper, and everybody else is like, we lift cattle and kill. What do you know?
Right. What am I going to do with that?
Yeah, so he would go and he would travel, and he would very dangerous to travel at the time, and he went way up into Germany and found these monasteries that nobody had visited from the outside in like 500 years.
What?
Like they had been established during like the Gothic Wars during the fall of the Roman Empire. These
Okay.
Christian
So 300
monasteries.
Yeah.
And in these monasteries, one of the things that the monks had to do was just copy scrolls all day. They were not supposed to read and understand the scrolls, Jackie.
Why not?
That was a sin.
What?
They were supposed to just keep copying things as like kind of a penance. And there's a lot of
Weird.
evidence that some of these guys got kind of depressed.
Oh, right. Because they weren't allowed to read them? I mean,
They
that
w-
was the sin.
It started out like they would read and understand, and
Yeah.
they would even add to them. And then over time, it stopped being that. It started being like reading and having a bunch of ideas and discussions in here
Yeah.
is not allowed.
Oh,
you
right.
know?
Somebody got super bossy.
Someone got bossy.
Yeah.
It happened in a lot of them. So this guy would show up. He'd have to talk his way in. He's not a monk.
Right.
Right? He'd have to be really persuasive.
Super charming.
Yeah.
To charm his way into a bunch of monks that haven't really talked to anyone non-German in 500 years.
Oh, yeah. And they don't want to. And you're an outsider.
And they're going to let you read their stuff?
Yeah. They're going to get stuff off the shelf that's been just sitting there for like hundreds of years for you.
And he did it?
Oh, he did it. And he found a lot of like finds. Like, and here's what's so crazy. Like his thing wasn't like, so he found On the Nature of Things by Lucretius.
Okay.
Okay. On the Nature of Things is this epic poem by Lucretius that is like totally humanist, totally pro-science. And in fact, it's an epic poem that's just filled with scientific theories. So it's got like, here's what atoms are. Like, it's like kind
Wow.
of where our idea of atoms comes from. And he did not care about, the guy that found it didn't
Yeah.
care about any of that. He just was like,
was he?
I found a rare one with great Latin. Like, he was like a Latin fan.
Oh, okay.
He was like a Latin dork. Yes. And so he got it out of the library. He made a bunch of copies.
Right.
He headed back to Europe, and he knew all these other Latin dorks.
Right.
And he was like, check it out.
Look what I found.
And he made his fortune off of that. He made his fortune
Off
and
of On the Nature of Things, the poem.
yeah, and other finds.
And other
it's
finds like that.
He would be more excited about stuff that we've totally forgotten about because it's like terrible and there's like better examples of it, but it had immaculate Latin.
Right. It was just nailed it. Nailed the Latin.
Look at the calligraphy on this
Oh,
one.
right. And very pretty. Very, very pretty.
But even though he didn't care about the content, when people kept reading it, the content eventually slowly started seeping into people's heads.
Right.
And they don't even have an example in history, a document where someone was like, I have decided there are atoms and that,
Yeah.
God doesn't decide everything, that there are laws of science. There's nothing like that. All you see is like a couple hundred years later, 70 years later, like there's different monasteries and churches that are like, anybody talking about atoms is in big trouble. So you just see people trying
Wow.
to silence it,
Right. Right. I was told, and granted, I was told this by an Umberto Eco book, Name of the Rose. The only one I've finished. It's very sad.
I want to read that one really badly.
It's
I've
really
never read
good.
it.
Andy's read almost all of Umberto Eco because
Oh,
he
yeah.
loves that guy. But it's super dense. It's like Ian Banks. I don't know if you've read
Yeah,
his
I've
science
read Ian
fiction.
Banks. Yeah.
Super dense, and I've read 2 Ian Banks books, but
Yeah.
it's a commitment because they're very well thought out and they're incredibly often very dense, but they're wonderful. They're wonderful books. I do love them. And did you ever read wait, before I forget, but
Sure.
in Name of the Rose, there was some talk of Aristotle.
Yeah.
That was a big reveal.
Sure.
That was the big, like, people were like, oh, you can't read Aristotle, that's heresy.
Yeah.
And because Aristotle was talking about scientific theory as well, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was in a monastery. I bet you it was that monk who found it. That monk who'd be like, I need a couple of bucks. I'm going to go look for something rare.
I'm going to go find some nice Latin. You know what's a really cool idea I read? Is that, like Plato, you talk about Aristotle.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Plato for a second. Have you ever read The Republic?
Yeah.
And how the Republic is like, we will breed generations of men who we will teach them athletics. And then the ones that are good at that, we will, the best of those we will teach
breed,
letters. And
yeah.
the best of those we will teach, and then
Right.
that will be the philosopher kings who rule us.
Yeah.
Well, I read this book called The Story of Philosophy, and in it they make the case that that's what the Middle Ages ended up being, is Plato's The Republic. Really, like when he talks about his philosopher kings,
Yeah.
that's the clergy. Like,
Oh, right. Yeah.
And-
Yeah, they
and-
were kind of, weren't they?
yeah, and in the Republic, they also talk about how we're going to make up a religion that will keep the peasants in line, and then our philosopher kings will write it and tweak it when they need to. And that's sort of what the
Wow.
Vatican...
What book was that?
It's The Story of Philosophy. What's the guy's name? Will something.
Nice
It's a
work.
great book. But you really go, oh, crap. Like, so the ideas that Plato had all the way back then kind of slowly became
Like
this, like,
social urban planning kind of situation.
yeah, and it's so weird that when he had the ideas, they were like dynamic and like rebellious. But by the time the Middle Ages came, they were like this horrible status quo.
Right,
like
right.
the oppressors were using those
Right.
ideas. Yeah.
And why, I suppose, wouldn't they? Did
Sure.
you ever read A Canticle for Leibowitz?
I have not read A Canticle for Leibowitz.
It is, it's essentially, I mean, the tale is essentially how history repeats itself.
Yeah.
And it starts with the bomb, right? The end of the world. And, Leibowitz is like the guy who invents the button. And, so the world, there's nukes go off. The peasantry, regular people are like, well, clearly it's the scientists' fault. We're going to kill all scientists. And then they're
Sure.
like, now we're going to kill anyone who can read. And then so they kill everyone who can read. And then a couple of people who can read hide, like monks, and copy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're copying like grocery lists.
Sure.
And bullshit. They're like, we don't know what we're copying.
Us Magazine. Yeah.
Right, until 500 years later, and then and it's essentially the story. I forget who wrote A Canticle for Leibowitz offhand. It's an easy one. A lot of people have read it.
Yeah.
Google it. You can do it, Rangers. You got it. But it's incredibly linear. And I mean, it's a snake eating itself, because you're just like, oh, and nothing. And I read it when I was probably 20.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is when your mind is blown by any number
Sure,
of
sure.
books. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's on every list I look up of science fiction.
Pretty easy read.
I've got to get it.
Yeah,
I've got to get it.
It's not bad. It's
yeah.
It's and the other one I read was Illusions, which isn't any science. It's all hippy skippy. It's the guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That guy blew my mind too.
I kind of like that generation of writers though, like Peter S. Beagle, The Last Unicorn, man.
That's on the stack of crap that I
Yeah.
literally have the stack. I'm like, I gotta finish the Lord Dunsany book. I gotta finish the Unicorn book.
Yeah.
But I also have the Red Shirts book. The Rangers have a book club.
Yeah.
And so that's on Goodreads. So go on Goodreads.
I'm gonna
and
go
look
on
for,
there.
for Ranger of the Dork Forest book club. The first book they read was Ernie Klein's Ready Player One. That was it.
I
Did
love
you
that
read it?
book.
That was a
I read
great
it.
book. Super
Yeah.
fun, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then they're just finishing Red Shirts. And Red Shirt's super easy read. It's just essentially about being a red shirt.
Yeah.
Star Trek-y kind
I
of
know
red shirt.
Scalzi because I read Old Man's War.
Oh, was that great?
Oh, it's dope.
All right.
It's so good.
All right then.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So the swerve is essentially talking about what's the swerve mean?
The swerve.
Why do they call it?
Well, in the poem, there's a Greek word meaning swerve that kind of discusses how the world works, kind of like we're all just atoms swerving into each other, bouncing off of each other, and then also there a big swerve happened when the poem was rediscovered, right? That's
Right.
It caused
On the nature of
society to
things.
swerve.
Right. Okay.
And then the Manchester book, The World Lit Only by Fire, that's all about how things started slowly changing too. It gets a lot into the Reformation, which was a huge part of it,
Right. So what we're talking Middle Ages is right. I don't have any of the dates.
I can kind of give you kind of
you
a
got
broad, yeah, and people
that-
might disagree with me because
Sure.
everybody argues about this. The Roman Empire fell, it's like 5th century, right?
Okay.
And then, it was a very slow, protracted fall.
Yes.
And then
4
that's
to 600s, right?
Yeah. And then you still have the Eastern Roman Empire. You still have Constantinople until 1453, right? And they almost say that the Middle Ages are kind of that period between when the Roman Empire fell and Constantinople fell.
Okay.
1453, the Ottoman Turks take over Constantinople.
Right.
And they say that that's kind of like the end of the Middle Ages. And then the Renaissance really starts in earnest at that point. But that's arbitrary. People have their own,
Right. I'm
labels,
sure, Right. I'm sure that everybody has very specific dates and very specific, because there's, during the European Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, there was a Renaissance in Northern Europe, right?
Yeah.
The Library of Alexandria and do you ever read, I can only speak in historical fiction. Allow me, have you ever read a Louis L'Amour book called The Walking Drum?
I haven't.
The Walking Drum it's a very coming of age kind of story. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fighting about a kid from like the British Isles who his father is a trader. He has a ship and he sails around the world, and his father goes missing. And, one of the neighbors is like, well, now I own his land because you're 15.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, look over there. And he runs.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to go find my dad. And, if I don't find my dad, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I guess I'll eventually come back and kill that guy.
Yeah.
But so the Walking Drum is how he goes around the world, and it's in that age.
That's really cool.
And it's Northern Europe.
I only know L'Amour
Northern Africa.
from Western stuff.
Yeah. The Northern
That's
Africa
cool.
stuff is amazing, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Because while we were, and there's some talk of Louis L'Amour going, while you are, living in a pigsty, there's a dude over in, Casablanca who, has perfume and is bathing and is healthy.
Islam's inventing like algebra, while we're just banging swords
Right,
in
right.
the Western world.
Right. We're killing 28 guys at a festival.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, those 28 guys might have been, geniuses. No, you don't care? Okay. I'm going to head back to Morocco. I'll be right back.
Life
Never.
was so cheap, but
Yeah.
not in some of those civilized parts of the world. Yeah.
Right. It was super civilized in Northern Africa, but it is fascinating because you think about, like, the only other things I've read, about the Middle Ages are all science fiction, like, the Doomsday Book. Connie Willis.
I have it. I haven't read it yet.
It's, super dark.
Yeah.
'Cause it's about
Then I'll love it then.
You will love it. And there's
Yeah.
another called Eifelheim.
Eifelheim. I
Eifelheim.
like the sound of it.
It's about a German town. It's bookended by the future, right? Mm-hmm. And in the future, like 2300s or whatever, there's a physicist and a middle-age, a professor of the Middle Ages, who are a couple. A man and woman, and she's a physicist, and she has some theory about warp theory, and he has some theory about this weird town in Germany, in Eifelheim, during the Middle Ages, where the Black Death came, the plague came, and nobody ever settled there again. And he's like, why? Everyone else in Germany was settled. Why did that never? And he has a theory that there were these strangers that came, and he doesn't know what the hell it is. And so the entire middle of the book, which is the best part of the book, shows us what happened in 1412 during the I don't know when the Black Death was.
It would have been in the 1300s.
1300s,
yeah.
okay. And it was essentially, it's about the Reformation, it's about the Black Plague, it's about tolerance, and it's about an alien ship crash lands. And there's a couple of aliens that have to get integrated and baptized if they want to stay.
That's got everything. That's got
has-
time travel,
It has everything.
knights,
Science.
swords, aliens. That sounds awesome.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. There's not a lot of fighting in it, but
Yeah.
And I'm pro fighting in a book, but in this
Sure.
it's just, but it's fat. It's really, really good, and it's also kind of weirdly sad because everyone's sick.
Oh, yeah. I read a nonfiction called In the Wake of the Plague.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
So sad. What
was
just that everyone died and they were like writing about it and they were so sad.
And so, because was it a virus? Was it Ebola? Was it Ebola?
It was spread by rats. It was
Right.
actually spread by fleas that are on rats.
That's all I know.
Yeah, that's
By the way,
that's-
about the plague.
Yeah, they go really
Where did
deep
it start? What year was that?
Gosh, it's been a while since I read that one. I just remember it came from the east. A lot of people think the Mongol invaders kind of brought it over a little bit.
Oh, Genghis
because they're
Khan.
doing their thing in around like 1240, you know,
Right.
And they're coming far into Europe, and they're bringing stuff we hadn't seen, or the Westerners hadn't
Yeah.
seen. But specifically, it goes into like people pulling into like ports, and it just starts,
Oh,
you
right, 'cause of
know, like,
ships.
yeah, ships. Yeah.
Someone got sick. It's like smallpox in the United States. When
Yeah.
they came to America, and the Native Americans had no defense against it. So
yeah.
but
And they thought it was
something
the
else.
apocalypse too, because
Yeah.
they were very, very Christian, and they had their apocalypse lore, and look,
Sure.
it happened.
Look,
It's
it
happening.
happened. 92%. How many? I mean, like literally, like entire towns were wiped out, right?
Yeah, yeah. And there's a fantastic fiction book. Have you ever heard of we're just naming books. I hope that's okay.
That is perfect, actually. Actually, people are just going, I have enough books, but please tell me about these books that I should be reading
but
one
I
day.
never get to talk about this.
Right, exactly. So it's the best.
Yeah, my girlfriend, who's not as much into this stuff, sits and patiently enjoys listening to me talk about it, and
There
then
you go.
almost nobody else. And you,
That is
Jackie,
why,
you
and
do.
that is why you love her,
That's right.
because she's there for you.
That's right. The book is called The Years of Rice and Salt. It's by Kim Stanley Robinson, who wrote
Wow.
the excellent Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars
right.
sci-fi series. He wrote a book. I thought this was in my top 5 books I've ever read. Basically, it says, what if instead of wiping out most of Europe, the Black Plague wiped out all of Europe? And then it's an alternate history. What if Islam and China
Just kept moving.
owned the world, and
Yeah.
what would that world look like? So you've got like Chinese explorers in the Incas
Right.
fighting the Incas in Peru. You've
Right.
got like the women's movement in Islam controlled Paris, area,
wow.
like in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah.
It goes through the entire history up until modern day. And another thing that's really wild about it is that the way it does this is like each section is like a different time period, right? Because he wants to keep hopping forward.
Oh, right.
But it's the same quote characters unquote, because they
Right.
keep going back to the Bardo and being reincarnated till they
Okay.
can learn their lesson.
That is awesome.
It's very cool, and it
The
made
Years
me
of
cry.
Rice and Salt.
It made me cry.
Okay.
It's very moving. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's kind of how justice and freedom are the same, no matter who you are, what your
yeah.
skin color is, what your creed or your religion is.
Right.
Justice, freedom, the ability
Humanity
to
is
love who you want to
exactly-
love. All of that is the same, always, 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 always.
Right. It's not
So-
always going to be a blonde guy with blue hair.
Yeah.
Well, that's backwards.
It sounds trite the way I say it, the way Kim Stanley Robinson says it. It's a profound meditation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is great. I'm pro that.
Yeah.
That's
I read a lot of great sci-fi. I read a lot of great fiction and nonfiction, but like I like something that gets a message that profound. That's rare. I think that's rare.
and it's one of the things that fiction can do that nonfiction feels like it can't.
It can't quite, right? I mean,
It's supposed to be journalistic. It's supposed to be, objective.
you have to come to the conclusion on your own, and for whatever reason, a lot of times it won't affect you emotionally,
Right.
the way a fictional story would. Yeah.
Right. But in the wake of the plague,
In the
that's
wake of the
just a
plague.
horrible story, and you're like,
Yeah,
I
and
am emotionally devastated.
There is emotion in that book because you're getting the accounts of the people. They're writing in the first person. Like, this is what happened
Are
to
they
us.
from letters and from
Letters and just the accounts. And of course it's like scattered and, spotty, but he finds a lot of good sources that really kind of make you go, oh, now I get it. Now I
Right.
get what happened.
Right, because like in Eifelheim, what the guy is using as source material in this fiction book is essentially the ledgers of the church.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the deaths of the different people. And the
Yeah.
guy also has like a journal of some sort, which they may or may not have had, right?
Yeah.
Because paper being very expensive at the time.
Yeah.
And my dad was telling me about some book that is also, I think, a small documentary like on PBS or something about the invention of the press led to the invention of glasses.
Oh, sure,
And
yeah.
why wouldn't it? You know,
Yeah.
people got to read, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't see that. And so that led to the telescope, which led to, of course, gay marriage.
The Telescope to Gay Marriage in 7 Moves by Jackie Cation.
Exactly. It's I play chess.
Yeah.
I don't play chess. Do you play chess?
No. Well, not well.
I have.
Not well.
I have played chess,
No.
not well at
No.
all. I don't know what I'm doing. I know how each of the pieces move, and
Yeah.
if you know less than me, I might win.
I'm more of a Magic the Gathering guy, actually more of a Hearthstone guy, if you know Hearthstone.
Oh, you going Hearth, or is it spelled Hearth?
It's spelled Hearth. Yeah, it's an
H-E-R-T-H.
online version of Magic the Gathering.
Oh, that's
kind
neat.
of. Yeah.
Guess what I just bought?
What you got?
We've weeded off briefly, but allow me to tell you that Chris Mancini of Comedy Film Nerds, who I just did a show with them, he told me you can buy the first 6 Final Fantasy Legend games.
Yeah.
First 6 Final Fantasy games for the iPod, for your iPhone or for the iPad. $70 for the first.
And you just can play them on a plane?
Yeah, you can play them on a plane. Yeah, I was like, well, thank you for taking over my life. Clearly,
You've got
I have
some
started
epic adventures to engage in.
Yeah. I started the first one today. I've already played it for an hour and a half. Hello and welcome, November.
That's awesome.
I know it. I'm pretty excited about
Hey,
it.
and we're not off topic because it's all vaguely medieval.
Right, there's swords.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of swords.
Yeah.
There's all, I like that they do incorporate a lot of, people romanticize the Middle Ages so much.
Yeah.
But there's, there's a bunch of romance novels that I read, I think in high school, or that there's like, did you ever read you've probably heard of it, The Time Traveler's Wife?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, I never read it because on the back of The Time Traveler's Wife, there was a New York Times review that said, this is so unique, this premise. A love story where a guy travels through time, and you're like, nope, there's walls and walls of that crap at the paperback exchange in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's an entire genre, right?
Diana Gabaldon.
Is that who wrote The Time Traveler's Wife?
No, Diana Gabaldon is this huge series called Outlander.
Oh, right. That's the new series.
Yeah.
That everyone's like, you would love that. You love Scotland. You love romance novels. You love time travel.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'll look at it. But here's my least favorite thing done when it's done in prose and it's done for no other reason than to tell me that everyone has an accent is when they put a lot of apostrophes and smash, and I'm like, just tell me what they're saying. Just tell me what they're saying. With a strong Irish brogue, with a strong Scottish brogue.
Dialect in prose, dialect in fiction is so hard to pull off.
It's maddening. You gotta use it sparingly, my friends. It's like adverbitis. You start sprinkling adverbs all over the place. I do it with commas, because I don't know where commas go. I use them as breath marks.
Sure.
And
I need to do that with my heavy breathing.
I know.
Nothing but commas.
You haven't been having heavy breathing since I think it was before you were allowed to speak.
Oh, don't worry, it'll happen again.
Oh, fair enough. Something to look forward to, people. It's did you see? I don't have any chocolate. I got you some gummy bugs and some gummy fangs.
You know what? I'm gonna try one right now, but I gotta say I'm a little worried. I'm thinking of wax lips when I look at them, and I don't want to bite into some wax lips.
They're not wax lips.
They're not like that at all, right?
They're like gummy bears. But we give away pencils, which make us the worst people to give away things on Halloween. But what we also...
Why do you do pencils?
Well, because Andy likes the idea of a pencil and a skull eraser. It's kind of fun.
That's cool.
He also... He spends a fair amount of money on tiny toys. And I was like, can we please give out some kind of candy? And so he was like, can we give out gummy fangs and gummy bugs? And I was like, yeah, those are... people will be psyched, right?
Sure.
Children love us. And 110 kids, 4 babies. And,
there we go. There we go. Oh yeah, I saw your tweet that you'd had 110 kids. That's amazing. Yeah,
very
that's a
blue
fun
collar.
Halloween
Yeah.
in New York. Nobody comes to my second floor apartment. You know,
Right, that's it. I mean, this is very much a house. Ground
it's a beautiful
floor.
little
little tract
here.
house. Sure, it's
All
adorable.
right, here we go.
You can eat
Gummy
a fly.
bug. I'm eating a fly.
Gummy bug. Step away from the microphone so that one guy who hates the chewing.
Sorry, buddy. Oh, it tastes good. Mm-hmm. It's chewier than I thought, but it tastes good. I love it.
Here's my current stack of to read.
Your book pile is a literal book pile.
It's a pile of books. Have you read The Last Unicorn by Peter Beagle?
I've only seen the old cartoon that makes you feel kind of weird.
Oh, really? There's a cartoon?
There's a cartoon film.
What I should do is I should read the Cliff Notes, and then I will be able to... Because I, sadly, am a big skimmer and then a rereader.
Yeah.
I like to get to the meat. Let's find out what happens. What happens at the end of it. And then I reread it again, and I'm like, oh, that also happened.
Rereading is so nice.
I love reading.
I never would ever do it, and then I finally started doing it like in the last couple of years, where I would go, "Hey, man, I really could."
What are your favorite rereads?
I mean, the Lord of the Rings, you know.
Oh, sure.
So I just reread that, and I hadn't read it since I was in high school or something.
I read it every year or so, though I haven't. That's not true anymore because I haven't read it in over a year.
Yeah, you know, there's other stuff. You'll know when it's time again, and then.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, Great Gatsby. I reread. I've read that a couple times, and you know,
I read To Kill a Mockingbird. I reread that a lot. Have you read that?
No, I've never read To Kill a Mockingbird.
First of all, pretty easy read. Assigned to kids in junior high.
Sure.
Second of all, one of the greatest stories in the world. Very sweet, very sad, very smart, and it's just about a decent person.
Yeah.
Who is in a town.
Is in a not decent society, right?
Right, in a less than great society.
Yeah.
And you'll like it because there's some tragedy.
I'm going to check it out. You know, I thought about, you know, why I like the medieval and the Renaissance stuff.
Yeah.
And it's because, this is right off what you're saying, which is that I grew up like in very religious, like country, like surroundings, you know?
Where?
In West Virginia.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
And my grandfather was a farmer and a Pentecostal minister and a miner.
Wow.
He was a triple threat. And he
clearly nothing pays really well.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
so I'm going to
clearly.
get a third job.
So yeah. So it's just like, it's kind of like, when I read about how religious, the people in Europe were in like 1197, right. I'm like, I get it. You know?
I get it. This was sent to me by this great lady. We did a little bit of a trade, and, it's Cara Bean at badgigi.com, Carabean. And she is an art teacher, and she sent me her 3 graphic novels, Ms. Bean's art class, sorry. And this is adorable, actually.
That's cool.
Andy's read all 3 of them. I've only read the art class one, and it's great. It's essentially
she's so good.
Yeah, she's really good. And then she's a couple, fully published, but less. It's all black and white, but they're really sweet and smart.
Where's she out of?
I think it's, I sent her a DVD because she was like, I want to send you this. And I was like, do you? And, and so I'm glad she did. It was great. But, so I think I sent her like a book. I mean, I don't know what I sent her, a bookmark, something. I tried to send something back because if somebody sends you something, you should at least send them a thank you card. And, so.
Cringe, an anthology of embarrassment is really cool. This cover just shows a guy walking to a classroom, and then an anthology of embarrassment is over where his exposed junk would be.
God, don't make no junk.
But it looks really cool. It looks really hilarious.
Right. And then, she wrote that. And then, of course, I don't know why this Wonder Woman is in there.
Why not?
Because it's the comic books. I never put them on my reading list.
Yeah.
Because they only take 20 minutes to read.
I read some of this Azzarello run. I didn't get to volume 4 of it, but it was good.
This should be 3 because I'm done after.
That's 4.
That's 4.
It says 4.
Oh, then I have to tell my pull list people to stop because I like the first 3. I'm good. That
happens with me in comics. I go off of comics for a long time sometimes.
Oh, yeah?
Just because I feel like I get a little bit of fatigue where I'm like, oh, this again. And then the second I start reacting that way, I'm like, well, I guess it's not fun anymore, so it's time to stop. And then you know what? I come back 3 years later and I'm hardcore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's so, I mean, we have such a stack of comics right now that it's been really, but Unwritten is amazing. Mm-hmm. Unwritten is one of my, and there was a bad patch where nothing was happening.
Yeah.
But we're back in it now.
Yeah.
Mike Carey's risen to the occasion again.
Yeah.
But there was probably 6 issues where you're like, What's going on, Mike?
Yeah.
Are you at a loss?
He's
Feel
got
free
a-
to go on hiatus for a minute.
He's doing an epic, you know,
Yeah,
those epics.
he really is.
Maybe he's building something he's going to knock down later and blow your mind.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's going to, because he does always have an end. Like, did
Yeah.
you read why him? Why
No,
that was
K.
Brian K.
Vaughan.
Vaughan.
I read Lucifer, though. Did you read Lucifer?
I did read Lucifer. Lucifer's one of the best.
Dude, it is so epic.
It's epic.
Epic.
And-
It's like destroying universes epic.
Yeah, like amazing. My favorite way to describe Lucifer, I was like, it's essentially Lucifer is sick of God's ineffable plan. And so he leaves hell and he's like, I don't want to be part of it. And he gets out. And then about 7 or 8 issues in, God goes, you leaving? That was part of my ineffable plan.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to do that. It's essentially your little brother just wandering around going, no, I knew you were going to do that. No, I knew or your big brother or whatever. And I was like, and so finally he has to go, I'm creating my own, I'm getting out of your universe.
Yeah.
Your universe blows. I'm sick of it. Even though you do a nice sunset. Cause it's funny, right? It's also smart and funny.
Yeah, very funny.
Yeah, which is my favorite thing. If something's going to be super dark, I want it to be funny. Like Lock and Key. Did you read Joe Hill's?
Excellent.
Yeah, also an excellent.
Yeah,
And dark.
And when he creates his own universe, it's so good. It's
And
so
beautiful.
good. And how it evolves, like his world evolves, and he doesn't predict everything that would happen in his own world. It's like very cool.
Oh, this was a gift too. The Wilder Life. This was a woman gave this to me. She wrote this. Wendy McClure. Thoughtful, hilarious. I couldn't put it down. Gretchen Rubin, author of The Happiness Project, says. And The Wilder Life is my adventures in the lost world of Little House on the Prairie. I wanted to have her on the show because she loves Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
Enough to have written this nonfiction
Yeah.
book about Laura
just about
Ingalls.
being into Little House on the Prairie.
She's from Chicago, Wendy McClure, and she has been to all, because it's in Wisconsin, all the Wilder stuff, and I'm from Wisconsin. So I really want to read this. I just haven't been able to get to it. There's so many things I want to get to.
Yeah, Wendy, I'll be in Chicago soon. Come say hi.
That's it. Are you in Chicago this month or
No, it'll be end of right after Christmas.
Zanies or
Zany's Rosemont, 26th of December.
There you go. At Jared Logan, folks.
At Jared
See it.
Logan.
See it.
Yeah, get it.
This one Will Anderson gave me. Will Anderson, Australian comic, and it is a story of sexual scandals in the Australian Football League.
Oh, wow. I need to be reading more books like this. Books that are so far out of my normal comfort zone or interest zone.
Yeah.
I bet it would inform everything. My comedy, how I see the world. I bet I'd be like, oh, that's like that Australian footballer who, you know.
Right.
I think they would understand so many things. Like, one thing about being a dork on something is that, you know, it's awesome and you get all this deep level of knowledge on something, but then it's like, why not like just go, hey man, it's time to read Night Games, you know?
Right, Night Games, which I haven't been able to start either, but that's by Anna Krien, Krien, Sex, Power, and Sport. You know how foreigners just refer to it as sport.
Sport.
No plurals.
Do you go out for sport?
Yeah, do you go out for sport?
I signed up for sport.
Oh, which sport? You know, what?
The sport that we
Yeah,
play.
it's the sport that we play.
Yeah.
It's very silly. So what do you think, what informs you about the Middle Ages? I mean, the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, it has to inform everything you do as well, right?
Sure. Well, you know, it's all about how people, improved themselves. You know, they stopped just believing what they were told eventually and
Right.
and started becoming free thinkers, you know, and
Well, they were handed a weirdo task in the beginning of it all, that First Crusade.
oh, sure, yeah.
Was the Dark Ages were the Middle Ages before the First Crusade?
They're kind of during, you know.
Yeah.
Some people want to put the Dark Ages like a little earlier than the Middle Ages. Some people think the Dark Ages is an offensive term.
Oh, are they
were
offended?
not actually dark, like we said, you know, in Islamic world, they were making innovations, you know.
Right.
So
right. They were only Dark Ages if you happen to live in Germany or
I'll
you
be
live
honest,
in
I
England.
love the idea of someone who gets offended by the use of the Dark Ages. That is someone who I can hang out with.
That is an academic moment. That
I
is someone,
disagree, but yes, yeah.
that is an academia kind of committee meeting that
Yeah.
you can have with you and your other PhD students. And I don't give a shit. Hope it all works out for you.
Let's make a policy. Let's make it university policy not to call it that in the department.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So you know, I mean, like the sweet spot for the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages is like, you know, 1100.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like 1200, right in there. You know.
That's
when you're really talking about knights and castles and horses and, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And not a lot of, and more just outlandery kind of, you know, punching of each other and not a lot of reading.
Right. Because by the time you get to like 1415, you've got like the Battle of Agincourt, you know what I mean? And like that's where they say things start changing. Magna Carta's in the 1200s.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's like right in the middle of them Middle Ages. Yeah.
Okay.
But the Battle of Agincourt, like that's where it stopped being all about having heavy armor and big swords and started being like all these peasant archers win the battle.
Right,
you know, like
on foot.
Yeah.
Behind all the
forget nobility, forget years of training, your entire life.
Right.
This guy's good with a bow and arrow.
Right, he's got a stick and he's just gonna ping.
And he's like, "Gore blimey, I'm gonna put one through your eyes and make you poop," you know.
Right. Right. It is a lot more egalitarian once you can kill somebody at a distance.
Right.
And there's catapults or trebuchets or whatever
and
they're
the
called.
weapon costs, you know, 1/8 of what it costs to get the
metal.
armor and everything. Yeah. It costs even less than that. It's like a cheap, reproducible weapon. So, you know, by the time you get into 1400s, that's like one of the things that's starting to turn it into the Renaissance of the modern era.
When was gunpowder brought to Europe? Any idea?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I think that they actually had stuff in the 1300s and maybe even a little bit in the 1200s.
Okay.
Very, very simple cannon and stuff like that. And you don't get like a gun until, you know, the 1500s.
1500s.
Yeah, I think. And this is, I'm not a historian or a historical professor, and I want to give that caveat, and I apologize for calling it the Dark Ages.
It's okay. Ross Thomas will write me a long, informative tale of all the correct terms.
Good.
Won't you,
good.
Ross? Come on.
Will you please forward it to me? Because
Jackie at JackieCation.com.
I am sincerely interested in reading it. Yeah.
No, I usually forward when I get email from people, and people do send me stuff. I usually forward it to the guest.
Yeah, good.
Just so you can see it. Yeah.
Oh, any kind of response? Are you kidding?
Someone
cared about something I said?
Someone cared about my dorkdom?
Yeah.
Hooray.
Yes.
Yeah,
please.
yeah. It's I got a lot of talk from Diva Zappa's knitting episode. There was like, that's interesting that she doesn't care when she drops a stitch. I love the idea of that. Or, no, she drops a stitch, she should undo it. Undo, redo. And,
wow.
Yeah, two different schools of thought on the whole dropping of the stitch. Diva Zappa, that's the way it was meant to be, man.
Yeah, and this is so interesting. Like somebody can be like that into something, and then someone else can be like boring. You know,
right. But the greatest thing about the Dork Forest is that
there is no boring.
There is no boring. Everybody's just on board. Anyway,
right.
Jared Logan, thank you so much for doing the show.
Oh, it's been a blast.
Yeah, it's over. That's the weirdest thing about it.
Oh,
I had
sad.
the typewriter episode. I just got an email from a guy who said that guy could have talked about because Jesse Case talked about typewriters for like 40 minutes and then only had 15 minutes to talk about World War II. And he's like, "Why don't you just do another episode with him?" Because it was starting to get really interesting. And I was like, I'll have him back. But yes, at Jared Logan is your Twitter handle. Also on Facebook, jaredlogan.com
and
is
can I
the
mention,
website.
I
Please.
have a album. It just came out from a Special Thing Records, My
Yes.
Brave Battle.
Get
Guys,
that.
get it. It's real good. I'm really proud of it.
And genuinely smart, funny, sweet, awesome, good comedy. Thanks a lot for listening, folks. Rangers, take care of each other out there. Bye.
My hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?